It's Spoilerin time, the show where after we've done all the hard work on Cordkillers to figure out what the services are and how we can watch it, we can watch them and then talk about them. And this week, we're going to talk about episodes 5 and 6 of season 2 of Deadwood, episodes 2 through 5 of the new Lost in Space on Netflix, the premiere of the second season of Westworld, and the fact that I'm Tom Marin and he's Brian Brushwood.
Yeah, but more importantly, we're going to talk about our wild speculation as we try to figure out the summer's biggest blockbusters in the summer movie draft. Draft. It's cold in here. I'm a grandma. Give me a sweater. What?
Hey, everybody. Night Attack's still in first place, 233 million to the Cordkillers, 132 million. Yeah. All 132 million coming from A Quiet Place, now the #1 grossing movie so far this year.
Yeah, and deservedly so. Wait, did we talk about A Quiet Place last week?
We did,
but it hadn't quite caught Ready Player One. This was the week it surged in front of Ready Player One.
Okay, all right. I know that we watched it asynchronously, and I wanted to make sure that we did take a moment to give our thoughts on it, and we did.
Rampage still bringing in money, but probably going to peak below 80 million. It looks like it's at 66 million. I Feel Pretty and Super Troopers both did less than 20 million, which is actually a little lower than I expected. But of course, the tsunami is sucking all of the water out of the harbor as Avengers Infinity War premieres this week.
Now, Tom, we know that you are conspicuously modest, but in some part of...
Wait, can you be conspicuously modest?
Only if you're Tom Merritt.
That's not modest anymore.
Look, Tom...
if you're conspicuous.
You could write a workshop on it, I'm telling you. Like you...
I don't know if I am conspicuously modest, Brian.
So here's my question. Can I tell you a secret, Tom?
Yes, please.
I actually... would be very happy, as shocking and surprising and frustrating and as strange as it would be. I'd be really happy if you just picked the right movie and ran away with the draft. And is there some small part of you that harbors the hope? Not because it was looking like Night Attack just had too many big studs to be beat. Now that we're getting there, do you think it's possible? Do you think it's possible that you are going to win?
Oh, yeah. No, it's possible. I know I've always felt it was possible, but it went from like 3% possible, right? Because my problem was not that I spent 85 on Avengers Infinity War. I still think it's worth that. It's that I didn't execute on my remaining 15 properly, right? To be able to stick this landing, you have to get the right other 3 cheap movies, and I don't think I got those. But if Avengers Infinity War, even as good as it is expected to be, overperforms and other movies underperform, then that confidence level goes up. And I am feeling that because A Quiet Place overperformed, but that wasn't expected. That's not the one that was going to beat me. And Ready Player One performed, possibly underperformed.
Yeah,
so it's looking like maybe Deadpool is the other one I need to worry about, and then I'd have to look at the rest of John Trekker's lineup.
Even then, you're in a good spot because so Cordkillers vastly overpaid for example, Solo. I think we agree that they paid too much for, but. Like, so if there's a place for a movie to overperform, you want it to be on somebody who has an otherwise weak roster or overpaid for a roster.
Yeah.
Whereas
John Trekker has a Rampage, which is underperforming, but they also have Incredibles 2.
Okay, keep in mind,
and Fallout.
Rampage also the #1 best buy in the draft so far. $7 game dollars they paid.
They only spent $7 on it. You're right.
Yeah. So in that regard, that I don't know.
That's a good one for them. I don't know. I feel like Night Attack is not out of this by any stretch. And I feel like John Trekker is probably still likely to beat me if Night Attack doesn't.
Yeah.
But we're going to know. I'm going to know whether this amount of confidence is warranted or not by next week.
Pretty much in the first 72 hours of the weekend, you'll know whether or not you won the draft.
By the way, can I just tell you what my wife is getting in the car to do right now?
No. Don't you say it. Don't. No. She's leaving you for another man.
Nope. She's seeing Avengers Infinity War.
Oh, she's leaving you for 20 other men.
Great.
And like 6 or 7 women.
And they're all superheroes.
Oh my God. How can you compete with that, Tom?
She pulled off miracles in the winter by saying, you know what? I don't think I can get you into Last Jedi. Oh, I can. Oh, I don't think I can get you into Black Panther. Oh, I can. The luck ran out this time. So,
I mean, that's actually.
I'll find out. I guess the reason that popped into my mind is I'll find out tonight.
Yeah, Tom, that probably is a good sign for the quality of the fact that you can't get into Avengers.
That may be true. I hadn't even thought about it because Black Panther, like, it was easier to get in before because people were like, we think it's going to do well. And then it like blew up.
Of course.
Last Jedi. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, Avengers Infinity War is the movie coming out this week.
Yep.
That's pretty much the way we're looking at it. All right, let's move on to Westworld season 2 premiere. I think for different reasons, we were both in kind of the same headspace here, Brian. A little bit skeptical, like, all right, I'm not expecting to be blown away. I'm not even sure I want to watch it week to week. Let's see what you got. How'd you feel?
I'm going to steal the... I thought I had a good line where I was saying, hey, I'm glad that there's finally some science fiction in this science fiction series. But that got trumped by Justin Robert Young's line where he says, man, bold decisions going with things like a plot or, the things that they previously not been trying to go for.
Character development.
Oh, whoa. How about this?
Yeah.
Okay, first of all the good things. Love the set design. Felt so refreshing. It was a breath of fresh air to see commando teams coming in with a bunch of sci-fi looking stuff, something that reminds me of that is bigger world. I love
and we get some clues as to where this is. Like it apparently is on Earth, maybe near China.
Well, so here's one of the things that they do very, very well in Game of Thrones is you understand the entire world. You know what Westeros looks like. You could picture the Narrow Sea. You could picture where the strongholds are in different kingdoms, and you know what it means. I understand the appeal of hinting at a greater outer world, but mainly making this a story of this one small corner of it, which is what we got for the whole first season. The fact that they spend, I think it's all of 45 seconds saying, hey, vaguely Asian people, you may have dominion on this Pacific island that's unnamed, but we're incorporated and get out of here, jerks. And then there's no more reference to it again. So
I immediately jumped to the conclusion that this is a future in which China has, in fact, finished solidifying their claims on all of the Spratly Islands and everything in the South China Sea, and has gotten to the point where they're like, oh, crap, what do we do with all these islands now that we've solidified our claim, and has started renting them out to international corporations?
Correct. And that's fine insofar as it hints as a bigger world on the outside, but I actually found it almost more agonizing and tantalizing for all of the implications that were not remotely addressed. And again, this is a show that very obstinately refuses. It's like there are things we will talk about and things we won't talk about.
I like that they gave us the island, because now I had an idea of like, oh, okay, so there's a Westworld and a Shogun world, but there's a barrier, right? Like the hosts are going to have to work a little harder to get off. That's cool. Giving me the vaguely possibly China uniforms, but not really. I'm kind of with you there, where I'm like, I don't know that I needed that.
Well, I do like that it just hinted at a tangible place in my mind. It made it a little bit more real, because that is a concern you would have. If you're going to have some kind of weird Truman Show reality place, then you're going to have a place to put it and all that. And so, as you know, and we've talked about this before, my two favorite things are genuinely thinking I've got my feet firmly planted on concrete and then having everything flipped upside down. I got a little bit of that concrete feeling from this first episode in a way that I did not from the whole first season. Loved the coy cameo from Anthony Hopkins in the voice of the kid. The way that they had the distorted voice and...
I don't think there is a motivation for that glitch, honestly, other than we just want to get Anthony Hopkins' voice in here, right?
Correct. Like we just want to remind you who he's talking to right now. Okay, can we talk about the whole conceit? Man, oh man, is that ever 90 minutes of Bernard/Arnold walking around looking confused? He literally did nothing else. I guess he was supposed to be an analog for the audience, walking around like, I don't understand literally anything that's happening.
It worked more for me in the post-attack scenes where he's sort of shell-shocked because he just learned who he is, right? And then he just saw all that happen, where I'm like, oh yeah, no, he would be a little bit not sure what to say. It didn't work so well for me 2 weeks later after he's washed up on a beach and we don't know what happened and why, and he's just not saying anything. I'm like, well, he'd say something. By that point, he'd have a story, right?
That's where it felt a little bit obstinate. And am I reading it right? I might need both of you together with your combined powers to Voltron up and help me understand this. It seems like Bernard Arnold is Bernardold is maybe two different characters, maybe two different timelines. Is it 2 weeks after it, or is it the day after the attack? Because there are scenes.
Summary of this called the timeline where he is with the military 2 weeks later.
Yeah,
I never saw that in the show myself, but I trust that this many different reviewers must have a reason for saying.
Well,
yeah, my assumption was that he was trying to piece together his corrupted memories, as we saw when he diagnosed himself.
Yeah.
And so it's just telling the story back and forth of one timeline. We just keep cutting between
definitely
post
a time of a future events after the timeline where he's with the lady from Thor Ragnarok.
I honestly can't decide how I feel about the idea that Bernard is now a robot vampire who has to suck sanity juice out of other robots and inject it.
Having to fix himself and hide it from her, good.
Yes.
Being the first host ever to leak from his ear, and having been someone who was supposed to pass as human, not good.
Well, and also, like, we've never seen anyone do this before. I need a milk infusion now. I have 0.72 hours to live.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad it's not just me, because I was really getting frustrated.
Also, okay, was it... I guess it makes sense that his wife works for Delos and works in the park, I guess, but I did not remember her from the first season, and I guess it was supposed to be a big turn that, like, oh, I'm working on secret stuff that Bernard doesn't know about.
There's an awful lot of, I don't know how much you remember of last season, but these are the rules now, and I'm going to flatly say them so that we can, and to be honest, I was so frustrated with last season that that's a bitter pill for me to swallow, because it feels like a bit, I don't want to say poor writing, but a bit on the nose, but I'm willing to accept that if it gives me something concrete to hold on to.
Yeah, I just don't know whether I'm supposed to think of, like, her knowing about this outpost that he doesn't know about as her being shady and a spy, or that's a limit of, like, his programming as a post.
Oh, I thought it was just a simple corporate hierarchy. She's farther up than he is, and so she knows some stuff that he's not allowed to know.
And that makes sense, because she has the access to the command line messages stuff.
And now I do find myself getting frustrated where I don't know how many characters know that he's secretly a robot who thought he was a real boy, and now, and especially
I got the impression last season that Anthony Hopkins had hid it from everyone.
Correct.
Yeah. But they, early on when they find him on the beach, the militia have, like, the flashcards with him, and it says high priority or high danger or something. So clearly they're trying to keep him alive.
Because they call him the boss, they trust him, and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. Nobody knows he's a robot, right? But everybody else thinks he's human. And then you see the flashcard, and you're like, well, hold on.
Well, and they're treating him like garbage.
And this is exactly, they're treating him like a tracker, like an Indian tracker that you need, and that would all be fine in and of itself. But they've established a precedent that we should not trust them after and by them I mean the creators of the show. It's not like Mr. Robot, where it's like, okay, we can't trust the narrator. It's an unreliable narrator. we can't trust the director telling the story of the show. And that puts me on guard, where it's like the side effect of that is that I don't give myself over to a story, which means it's going to be harder for me to get a surprise. Or if I do get a surprise, it will have less of an impact because I've been on guard the whole time.
Well, because there was another point where she said, there's a host I've been trying to get out of here because it has important data. And I immediately, and there's probably something in the first season that should contradict this, but I didn't remember if it was, I immediately went, that makes Maeve make sense.
Correct.
Right?
That's why she was
programmed to leave and then fought her programming, and that's why she turned around. And then they're like, and it's Mr. Abernathy. And I'm like,
yes, I did.
Crap.
Yes, that's yes, yes. And although I did really dig Maeve saying like, she was talking about, like, that's my daughter. And he's like, come on, man, you're smart. You're as smart as the audience. You know that's a script we wrote, and it was a bad script at that. And that she doesn't seem to care. And
I still don't know if he means there was no daughter. That was just your programming. You were supposed to, or if
I got the impression that
wasn't actually your daughter. That was just another host.
I got the impression that she spent quite a while running that part of the program, and he was like, "Yeah, we were really wasting your talents back when we had you running that part of the park."
Well, but was the program like, I'm looking for my daughter, or was the program protecting her daughter?
I think the program was, she used to think about it as a theme park, because that's what they're running with, right? Yeah. She used to play a mom who loved her daughter very much on the plains, and did that for a long time. And the game master was like, "Whew, we're really wasting you with that. Good thing we got you." What I was
trying to say is, was her game role like, I'm the character that comes in and says, "Please help me find my daughter," but there was never an actual daughter, or was it, she's the woman with the daughter?
I think she was,
came in and shot her daughter.
I think she was the woman with the daughter, and I think this whole story is a story of robots who everything was okay because the robots kept forgetting everything, and now they're not forgetting anything. And that's why we get
will there be an actual host for her to find?
I think there will.
That she says, that's my daughter. And then that'll be interesting, because will that host remember her? Maybe not.
So the crazy part was, do you remember when they turned around and there was like, man, that doesn't belong here, because there's this white polar bear on the island and it didn't belong there at all.
That wasn't white.
Oh, sorry. No, it was a tiger on an island.
You're
totally different.
Lost.
Totally different.
I took that as the tiger got out of Shogun World.
Yes, that's what I took it as well. I also took it as a familiar trope.
See, I didn't take it because the polar bear on Lost was, where are we? The tiger was like, that thing's in the wrong place. It's supposed to be over there.
So what about the ending? Because I had a real problem with the big emotional swell at the end, and it got me so confused that I needed to ask Bryce, did I mishear? Because they're all like, where are all the hosts? Where are all the hosts? And then big sweeping shot, they're all flooded and dead here. And I had to ask Bryce, I was like, did I mishear? Did they say guest or host? Because if it's host, we've seen hosts die a lot. An awful lot. And I don't know why I would feel anything for a bunch of flooded hosts.
Well, and this was the thing in season 1, is that you really didn't have much attachment to the hosts.
That's true, because I'm a bad person.
I don't think that's what you're supposed to feel. I think you're supposed to feel, well, hold on. Did Bernarnold stop everybody from their plan to escape?
Yeah.
Is this, wait, I'm confused. I thought she would succeed and get off the island. It looks like he actually turned against them and stopped them all. Or did he? That's how I took it, less of a, I should care one way or the other. And it was a confusion about, well, what really went down here?
And that military force going into whatever the situation in Westworld is, has to assume all of the hosts are going to be violent and are warring against them.
Got it.
So if hundreds of them killed themselves for some reason.
Right. Or were killed by some entity.
And he says, I killed them all.
Yeah. Okay. So I guess the surprise there is they're going in expecting a battle camp ready for war, and instead they find in a bunch of corpses.
Exactly.
Also a mysterious sea. And apparently just, hey, there's not supposed to be a sea here.
Because Bernarnold can make seas happen.
I'm telling you, it's the piano, guys. The piano's the mastermind.
It was the dog piano from the last 26 minutes of that Rickroll video that they made.
Exactly. That's what it is. I wonder if there aren't actual hints hidden in the Rickroll video.
There might be.
You know what? Here's the sad part is I don't care.
I know.
On a
I
different show, I would be
either.
rabid to find out, but I'm just so guarded. I'm so on guard. My fear of feeling like a sucker is greater than my joy of wanting to explore this new world.
Oh. I'm sure you didn't, Brian. Tom, did you end up seeing the like coming up in the next few weeks on Westworld trailer teaser thing?
Yeah.
I thought it looked very exciting. Just in terms of
half of it we'd already seen before. So
like Shogun World and all that stuff.
Yeah, there's one shot of
Specific
Maeve
stuff.
that we hadn't seen for sure. There were a couple other shots here and there, but yeah, there are definitely some shots in that and the previous trailer that indicate things that are going to happen that are questions in this episode. That you're like, well, obviously she goes there because look at that.
Yeah. They're just I don't know. It was I guess I don't want to describe it because it would be spoilery, but it's exciting and it potentially opens the bounds for certain things.
Quick point. Did you guys notice that in the two different situations, I'm going to have to replay this or rewatch it to make sure, but I think by the end I had realized that half the time Bernard has glasses, half the time he doesn't, and I don't know if that's to indicate
that's interesting. I didn't notice that. Yeah.
Two different set pieces or two different
because he's looking over his glasses at people. We also have that brief interlude where he is talking to Rachel Evan Wood. Dolores.
Right.
And we don't know where that fits in. Is that Arnold?
Yeah.
Is that Bernard or is that recent? I don't know.
Yeah.
Man, looking for a little bit of concrete. That's all I'm hoping for.
Yeah.
Although
I do feel like this is a good, like, if season one is all about like, oh, let's get the maze, let's find the maze. I think this did a good job of saying like, okay, this was the result of the maze.
Oh, right. Also, it's not a maze. It's a door now.
And now you got to get back through the maze backwards to close
Go through the door. And the door is at your end, but where you began.
What was what is the most generous? Okay, I know what the jaded interpretation for the gratuitous man-dog scene is so that they could throw man-dong at us.
Okay. As HBO was wont to do.
Correct, and it's been a hell of a formula so far. We certainly have seen lady bits, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any motivational or story driven reason? Are we meant to be all like finally?
This is Maeve asserting I'm in control now.
Yeah.
You used to do this to me.
It's revenge.
You used to undress me and make me stand in front of you and diagnose. Now I'm doing it to you.
I guess I would have liked to have seen some cruelty or something besides.
But that's the cruelty, because they weren't cruel to Maeve.
Exactly.
They just humiliated her, so she's humiliating him.
Then I guess I would have liked to feel some shame from him, or like it felt painless. It felt toothless.
Not everyone is as comfortable with their body as you are, Brian.
Oh, Jesus, hold on. I would make a strong case that of everyone here, I'm the least comfortable, and I would telegraph it wholeheartedly where I put on HBO, and I felt none of that. I felt an actor who had been working out and ready for this scene.
Well, and that may be a failure in that performance then, because I think it was meant to be humiliating and shameful, and maybe you just picked up on like, this guy is not ashamed.
He's just hanging dong right now. What's up, bro?
Yeah, that may be. All right, let's move on to Lost in Space, episodes 2 through 5. We progress out of the Jupiter module. We get it up out of the ice. We discover that there's a lot of other people on the planet, and then we make trips to get in contact with them. Dr. Smith's story starts to come under a little of investigation, and she has a hard time putting it together. But really, the one thing that I want to start with, Brian, is the majority of the plot up until 5 hinges on the robot being hidden, and I just didn't buy the hiding of the robot. Like, I didn't buy that Will would just go tell it to stay in a cave and it would stay there. I didn't buy that they would all follow him out there and not change their mind. There was something about that just bugged me. I'm like, that just doesn't fit. That doesn't feel like that's what would happen.
I didn't have a problem with any of that for the reasons of I thought they did they set up a number of test scenarios to give a proper context. For example, certainly he looks threatening in the beginning and then seems to want to protect and take care of Will Robinson. But then they test him. He full on says, why don't you walk off the edge of this cliff? And he starts to walk off and he's like, okay, whoa. All right, got it. And it's like, you seem to be honest. And we see him save and do menial work and they build up the trust. However, to me, it's a credit to the credibility of super intelligent child actors that I believe they would understand the logic puzzle that they're trapped in, especially since Will knows and eventually shares the fact that, no, this is the reason, whatever this thing is the reason that 27 people died and that we aren't at Alpha Centauri and that maybe all of us are going to die on this planet. We very much have to keep it a secret. And even... maybe it's because I'm a parent. These kids from what ages, 10 to 17-ish, 18-ish. This is when biologically you begin to test boundaries and start keeping secrets from your parents. And
yeah, but that's okay. Okay. Yes. All of that is true. And I don't dispute any of that. What I was saying is, I don't believe that they would all keep the secret as well as they did. I don't really buy that Judy at 18 wouldn't change her mind and say, well, hold on, this is just dumb. I'm not going to follow you all the way back. Those are my less strong objections, though. My biggest one is the same robot that wouldn't open the storage door will just stay in the cave because you told him to, even though there's danger.
Okay, the way I read that, and the reason it didn't bother me, is he wouldn't open the door because it's clear there's some kind of telepathic or psychic connection between Will Robinson and the robot, right? With that being the case, Will can keep saying when he's trapped in the closet with Dr. Smith, open the door, I want you to open the door, I want you to open the door. And the robot could be thinking, I took that whole scene as be like, you're saying that, kiddo, but you and I both know you don't want me.
I don't hear your words. I hear your feelings.
Exactly. Yeah. And so whereas he's like him staying in the cave, like, no. You are genuinely going to get destroyed by my people for what you did unless you stay in this cave. And I don't know how long it's going to be, but I need you to do this. And I believe the robot would believe that as well. So I didn't have a problem with any of that because I think that both Will and the robot no, I mean, look, I watched The Iron Giant. I love this whole Iron Giant premise of this appears to be an instrument of war that got a knock on the noggin and wants to befriend a kid instead. Like, even if it's familiar territory, I'm loving every minute of it. And
I guess the first episode particularly subverted my expectations, right? Every time I thought something was going to go one way, it didn't. In fact, it got worse. And they've done that after episode 1 to great effect a few times. So I was a little disappointed that I'm like, oh, but this is the predictable thing. You stick the robot there and then it stays there because you told it to, and then it doesn't come out. No, and then it gets discovered and then now it's going to be uneasy. That all felt like a more predictable version of the storyline than the rest of the storyline has been. The rest of the storyline has kept me guessing. And it's not so much because your explanation actually brings me much closer to understanding, like, okay, I guess if it's not hearing words, but hearing feelings, and it can tell that Will really wants him to stay, even if it doubts it might stay. I can buy that. I don't know. I was a little disappointed in that storyline because I'm like, here's what's going to happen. And it did. And every other time I've said, here's what's going to happen. And it hasn't. And you know, they've still pulled it out at the last minute, which I knew would happen, but I didn't always know how they were going to do it.
Can I tell you how, here's a different metaphor, for you to try and emphasize. How much are you enjoying, Dr. Smith as Vic Mackey, where it's just constantly like, I mean, this is a house of cards, girl. You're going to get
Dr.
found
Smith
out.
is a great example of what I'm talking about, where they're like, hey, you're the woman who left me in the cave. And you're like, oh, she's busted. She can't get out of this. And she's like, oh, I know. And I was so worried about you. Like, he can't possibly swallow that. And he's like, I'm not going to swallow that. And she's like, yeah, no, I understand why you wouldn't, but here's what happened. And it's like, holy crap, she's convincing me and I know better. Like, yeah. It's really good.
That scene with her taking her sister's slot on her twin sister's slot on the ship. So what a great, the vague memories I have of the original series of Dr. Smith being, conniving and vaguely sinister and selfish or whatever. That's like, that's the moment I realized, like, no, this is some Vic Mackey level stuff. She's going all in, and she's a bad lady.
Oh yeah, no, she's only nice if she thinks she needs to be for some reason that she needs.
And also I like how morally ambiguous. What's the other guy? Don Draper. What's his name? the one non-family pilot guy. Yeah,
no, I can't remember his name either now. But yes, the guy she left in the cave.
Yes. I like the fact that when we first see him in that very first episode, it feels as though, oh, these are three birds of a feather. These will be the three bad guys. But then very quickly, the deeds and actions of them reveal himself to be, a smuggler with a heart of gold. And
he's Han Solo.
Yeah, exactly. His crime. Look, man. If taking whiskey to Alpha Centauri is wrong, then I don't want to be right. Like I'm
People
on
need
board.
Lagavulin, all right?
Don
I
West.
got a case of it. What do you want to do?
Don West is the character's name. Because I remember in the first series, he was kind of this heroic figure, maybe a little rough around the edges, but to make like that story-driven hook of him taking care of that chicken, I've enjoyed so stupidly much.
I love that too. Like he's just carrying it around. Yeah. No,
He's like, it's my good luck charm.
And then when Alma Garrett goes off into space and takes a balloon, that was another great example of like she's just up on a mountaintop doing a weather experiment and she almost gets killed.
Well, in a credible vignette, I mean, that was like, I enjoyed that so much. It reminded me of the movie where what's his name cut off his arm, the documentary movie, like
127 hours.
Yeah, however many hours.
Yeah.
I think it was called However Many Hours.
Or as it takes for
in
me
parentheses, it takes to cut off an arm. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the name, the original name.
Bryce, have you watched any of these?
No, I haven't caught up past episode 1.
Do you think that you could get over the fact that it's about a family in space? Because here's one thing.
That's not a hurdle for me.
Because we know you hate family.
I do hate families. I only watch shows about bachelors.
I forget that I'm just in a different place having kids. And normally I hate anything with child actors, but these kids are good.
Oh, they're great.
And their storylines are good, and their acting is good. And I like the fact that they're able to get away with there's like forgive my cursing, a bullshit per episode of son of a bitch, these PG-13 level cursings that make me not feel like I'm watching a cheesy family thing, but instead a real hard science fiction story with real grit.
Yeah, I agree. Bryce?
Yeah, I really like that first episode. I just haven't had time to catch up with the other ones, and I think the fact that it's all there just means I can get to it whenever I get to it. But it's really good, and it being a family story doesn't pull me. I have a family. Actually,
so at episode 5, contrary to popular belief, I'm not the robot.
Not a wolf boy.
Hold on, take a scalp off. Let's pull out his module.
I might. That was a bit gratuitous, right? That's
wrong.
Wrong spoiler. Okay. So I may have gotten ahead of you, Tom, last night because I was watching while I was playing some Hearthstone last night. What's the last thing the robot was doing when you watched the robot on episode 5?
At the end of episode 5, robot comes running into camp, saves everybody, and everybody goes, but that's the robot. And then we're left wondering what's going to happen next.
Okay. All right. Well, then I definitely saw the episode where we find out what happens next.
Sounds like you saw episode 6. The other thing that I want to mention that I really like is how they're treating Judy's story, where it's obvious that she is not directly related to her other 2 siblings, but that doesn't define her. I love that they're like, look, we're going to acknowledge that, and so when Don Solo West comes in and was like, well, hey, and she's like, yeah, I'm a Robinson, different, one different parent, but whatever,
Yeah.
It's like, I'm like, oh, we're going to get this story, but they're working really hard to go like, that really doesn't matter. That's not essential to her character. We're going to explain that, and it'll probably be important for one reason or another. Probably more to do with the relationship of the two Robinson parents than with Judy. But Judy is like, yeah, that's just the thing. Why? Yeah, people seem to make a big deal out of it. Whatever.
Man, oh man, the fact that 5 episodes in, I still don't know who's right, who's wrong, where the rift started. But I feel the sincere desire from both parents to do what's right for the family, even though both of them are trying to figure out what that means. To get 5 episodes in with very few concrete details and not get annoyed like I get with Westworld is masterfully done. They communicate that so well.
All right. Anything else about Lost in Space?
Love the fact that there's lots of other colonists and other survivors, and they're all coming together. I love that it's a crazy sideways world, so that at least for this first season, because I assume where we're getting is they get off planet, and maybe they're the only ones to survive. That's the other thing, is I look at all these people, and I was like, well, I don't know how many of you are going to make it. I like the young adult romance with not Judy, but the other one, Penny, with Penny.
Yeah.
I like that the world is so crazy that they get to different set pieces. It's hot, it's cold, it's arid, it's foresty, and they give a reason for it. A decent sci-fi MacGuffin, or because of the existence of this black hole, that everything's kind of nutty and they don't have a lot of time on this planet. And I love all of it.
All right, let's move on to Deadwood, episodes 5 and 6. We're going to catch back up on our regular pace. And the big thing for me here is that we've both been feeling like there's a bit of a lag. And I started to think maybe it's because Swearingen isn't around. So I was curious if Swearingen sort of coming back into the picture in episode 5 and actually sitting up and talking to people in episode 6 changed things for you. Did you feel like we're finally getting a little momentum back, or is it still stagnant?
It still feels vaguely, and I would suggest intentionally slow at this time. And we made this comparison before. It felt to me like the season 2 of Battlestar Galactica, where it's like, whoa, we might be onto something here. Let's slow everything down. I'm not... as a result of introducing new villains and new complications, as a result, a lot of characters suddenly feel redundant, and they full on got rid of Eddie. Cy Tolliver suddenly is made almost as irrelevant and benign as Al Swearingen, which already, Al Swearingen from the beginning of season 1, you're like, this dude's got grit, he's got teeth, he's the guy in charge, he tells like it is, everyone has good cause to be scared of him. And yes, we do see him commit a murder, but later on, but the only murder we see is begrudgingly done as a tactical thing. We see it like, look, man, I take no joy in doing this. Cy becomes a petulant, crazy child which is fine, but he's also fairly useless. He's the plaything of Mr. W, who comes in and says, start buying up stuff. And even that's fine. If I would love to see Cy Tolliver express how trapped he is. I wish he had a confidence that he could be like, I've never had my thumb in the screws like this. I wish there was something I could do, but I've got no play. So as a result, we see no moves from his chess game. And it's getting very frustrating for me that nothing's happening. However, I am continuing to love the development, and I forget which parts of this is episode 5 and episode 6. Al Magera being with child is a fascinating introduction, and specifically the suggestion that she be made a proper woman by again, I forget the name.
By her foreman.
Who's the name of that guy? The guy who we were all convinced was going to be killed in the second episode.
Yes, right. He was a patsy. They were going to pin the murder of Alma's husband on him. And now, not only is he successfully running her business and standing up to Mr. W, the only person who seems to be able to do that, but he also might marry Alma.
It's like all of a sudden, like that is the first thing this whole second season that I felt like has made sense. A good magic trick lays all the elements right in front of you, makes you see it, and then makes you realize, oh wait, all of these fit together like this. How could I have not seen this? And that was the first time I had seen that in all of season 2. That's the one plot point that I'm absolutely in love with.
Yeah, I feel like we've been moving Seth into position to be the good guy, or at least the best guy possible in this situation. We've been moving his partner into position to not always be happy with Seth, so that there can be some conflict on that side. And they kind of bailed on Sai, frankly, who was really in season 1 Swearengen's rival.
Yeah.
And now W is Swearengen's rival. And we've had to knock Swearengen down so that you underestimate him. And now I think we're going to see him come back, and there's going to be an epic battle. Maybe face to face, maybe not. Swearengen's a smart guy, and he's starting to gather his strength back. But he's going to be battling the stroke effects through all of that. So I'm hopeful that we're going to get a really interesting story where you have Alma, Seth, Swearengen, and W as sort of the major players.
Well, here's where I think they might have intended to go, and I think they just this is all wild speculation, but it was a bit of a surprise to everybody when Deadwood was not brought back, and they were just like, "Nah, we're canceling it, wrapping it all up." It feels to me that the first season established the city as an entity, as a character, right? The second season, you needed to break everybody so that they could all be afraid of the moneyed interests from, I forget who Mr. W works for, right? So we have an
Hearst
unnamed
in San Francisco.
Yes, exactly. So if the town is functioning well and is healthy, then you're not very afraid of Hearst because you feel like our team can rally together. But if you break each individual character, if all of a sudden you have a weakened Swearengen, if you have a Cy Tolliver who seems powerless to resist the demands of Mr. W, if you have a Seth who's distracted by maybe making this work with his wife, if you have Alma who can't get her head in the game because she's thinking about a baby and so on, then you can have what I assume at the end of season 2, or maybe it was what season 3 was going to be about, the Hearst Empire actually come in and make it look like the Empire's about to win. And then this ragtag group of rebels, all of these flawed individuals come together, and we can't believe it. Deadwood is still alive and well. That's what at my most generous I want to hope they were going for. But it felt like some sloppy work along the way where it's like, let's just have a fight at the beginning where Saul gets shot and Swearengen has a stroke and also, pees out of stone, and, Seth builds a house when nobody's looking.
And don't forget, we get a full season 3.
Do we? Good. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I know that I remember it was after season 2, they announced that it was canceled, and season 3 was like, we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, because they got 12 episodes of season 2 and 12 episodes of season 3. So it will be interesting to see how this all ends up playing out. Thank you, everybody, for supporting us on Patreon. We are thrilled that we're still able to do this show because of you. And as the mildest kind of thanks for that, we're giving you a little extra stuff. So if you haven't looked in your Patreon stocking lately, check it out. There's an RSS feed there, and there is an after show discussion that Brian and Bryce and I do every week, and throw it in there where we'll either talk about more things from the themes of the shows, or we'll share strategies about where the show's going or itself. You just never know what you're going to get until you open that box of chocolates known as the after show discussion or after talk. Patreon.com/Cordkillers. We'll talk to you there.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.